10-time All-Star, World Series champion, and MVP of the National League, 2-time NLCS MVP, 4-time Gold Glove Award winner, and the man who holds the record for most consecutive games played in the senior circuit. Care of our friends at King's Hawaiian. Good to see you, Steve Garvey. How are you, Steve? I know. Well, if you noticed, as a Wolverine, I left off
tips, by the way, that was a great introduction.
That's right. As a Wolverine, I did leave out your collegiate experience.
You were a Wolverine?
Wow, I am a Wolverine, Steve.
That was my backup school. You know that? Yeah, it was.
For baseball, right?
Steve,
For
that
baseball,
was
right?
Just in general. Education.
Was it your safe schools?
Listen, I loved veterinary medicine and agriculture, and so you guys were what? Medicine, a little law.
Is that
every attorney I've ever had is from Michigan, by the way.
So whenever you need a Michigan man, you reach out
for that category, right? Yeah.
How did you get to Michigan State? You're from Florida, aren't you?
Tampa, Florida, and played football and baseball,
right?
And had about 20 offers. It was the beginning of specialization. So I had football, Florida, Miami, baseball, Florida State, Auburn football. But I wanted to play two sports. And our pitching coach at Tampa Chamberlain High School had played for Danny Letweiler, who was the Michigan State baseball coach, but had been at Florida State. So he says, Danny, we got this kid. He might just come up there if you get him up and schmooze him and everything. So took a bus. My dad drove for Greyhound. Mom and I went up. And Danny met us and took us to Jennison Fieldhouse and showing us the trophies. And all of a sudden, this man comes around the corner, and it's the great Irishman, Duffy Daugherty. And he comes up and he said, son, we hear you play two sports. And I said, yes, sir, I do. He said, why don't you play a little football for us, too? And, maybe a little both ways. He said, we got 23,000 co-eds, and you're bound to get a date on Friday nights. And
what a pitch!
And I wasn't doing too bad, but I need all the help I can get. And went out, and at that time, they were a little depleted in defensive back. I was a quarterback, and by the second week, I was starting right corner and played against Michigan and
in the big house?
USC when O.J. Simpson was there his first year, 1967.
So did you ever think of professionally pursuing that?
Yeah, but I was, there's no big demand for a slow corner. So
what was your 40 time?
So I would have been a weak safety maybe because I understood the game, quarterback mentality. And when I first started, I'd played some defense in high school. So, I intercepted a few passes in the first scrimmage, and I know that's it. No more quarterback for me anymore.
That was the end of that.
And but it worked well. Loved playing Big Ten football. Played it at Notre Dame. So yeah, it was a wonderful. And I was playing two sports gives you a great balance and understanding.
Hey, Kurt Warner says it all the time, and a bunch of the guys that I work with at the NFL Network say it all the time, that football coaches should not discourage players from playing baseball also. Right. Dion
sure
talks about it all the time, how crucial his baseball playing experience was in helping him as an athlete. He talks about baseball all the time.
Yeah, Rich, you can pick out a
Michigan
number
State
of
Dodger.
guys that will tell you that one complements the other. Baseball, obviously more eye-hand coordination, but balance and quickness and being able to sit for a long time and having to concentrate without anything happening and reacting right away.
Right.
Football, you got 11 guys continuously going at each other. Baseball is only 7 minutes of action in a game. So you really have to focus and concentrate and watch. So it's a great balance.
Steve Garvey here on the Rich Eisen Show. And we were talking off air because Al Michaels been on this show many, many times talking about how he was an announcer. He would tell me a story. He was an announcer in Hawaii calling some minor league games. And Lasorda suggested that the Dodgers look at Al to call games because – and I asked Al, I'm like, how did Lasorda know how you call a game if he's in the game? And he said, well, Lasorda got thrown out before a game started because he was still arguing from the night before.
Right, once a week, no matter what.
And so was Lasorda your manager? He was
my manager, Spokane AAA, Pacific Coast League, and I was up and down in 70, but that team was a phenomenal team. It's been picked several times as the greatest minor league team in history. We had 11 guys, I think, that played. Each of us played over 10 years in the majors, which is phenomenal.
So were you all on it? Lopes and Say and Russell, were you all on it too?
Valentine and Peshoric and Tommy Hutton, who went on to go with the Phillies. Steve Soggy was a catcher for us, but he quarterbacked at SC. We had a real eclectic but a great group of guys. Won the division by 28. But we play the Hawaiian Islanders, 28 games, our division. And the first one, and I hadn't actually heard Al over there. But during the first game, the old Spokane Stadium, it's wooden, it echoes. And this voice, I say, oh, my gosh, the Dodgers asked Scully to come up and call a few games for us. Well, it wasn't Scully. It was Al. And he sounded just like Vin. So the first night I hit a home run, win the game. Afterwards, do the post-game interview in the dugout. And Al and I were talking, and I was amazed at how he had the diction down and Vin down pat. Now, of course, we all knew the evolution after that was the great calls and the great career he's had.
Sure.
But to see him when we both were in AAA, and to be able to go on from there, and of course he's been a dear friend, and we see him at Toscana, the great restaurant, and, right? And San Vicente,
otherwise known as the Al Michaels Commissary, Al and Linda Michaels Commissary,
ASAP, okay. Right?
And can't forget Linda. Steve Garvey here on the Rich Eisen Show. So your first All-Star game, you were a write-in candidate, correct? Were you the write-in?
1974. I'm a wild arm third baseman early in '73. No big demand for that, but I'm pinch hitting, and all of a sudden I'm leading the National League, and it's June 23rd, 73. I get a pinch hit in the eighth inning against the Reds. Lefties were killing us. We lose, one of only 2 hits. I'm sitting in my locker. Walter Olson comes by, and he looks at me. He said, you ever play first? I said, absolutely. Played 1 game in Little League and 1 in AAA with a bad hamstring because the Spokane was in the first base dugout.
Yeah.
And he said, get a glove. Start tonight and don't trip over the bag. And Doug went out of the dirt, came off, made a tag, 2 doubles, 2 RBIs. And I'm sitting there after the game. And you know these days where everything comes together, where you've worked hard, or out of nowhere a blessing is hit you. I'm sitting there, and out of the corner of my eye, he comes through the tunnel at Dodger Stadium, and he walks by, doesn't stop, and I hear, you're in there tomorrow. And Steve Yeager's next to me, and we look at each other, and I said, is he talking to you? He says, no, I think he's talking to you, Gar. And that was the beginning. That night was the beginning of Say, Lopes, Russell, and Garvey that began 8.5 years, and the beginning of my career. And I do a lot of motivational speaking, and I talk about moments in our life when you're asked to do something that you haven't done. If you're a little suspect or you're a little afraid to take the jump, don't do it. Semper Fi, just deja vu, whatever it is, take it, make the effort to do it. And if I had said, no, I've never played first, probably wouldn't be here today. But carpe diem, seized the moment, and went out that night and gave it my darndest and found out at my height, at 5'10", I can pick the ball out of the dirt pretty well.
You could.
Yeah. Russell used to yell at me, Garv, get off your knees. And I'd say, I'm saving you, all that stuff.
Steve
Wave it high. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you.
No, not at all.
But the theme was, throw it high, wave goodbye, throw it low, we're good to go with Garv. So.
Unless, I guess, Reggie Jackson is throwing his hip out during the World Series. Remember that one?
Flagrant. He should have been banned for the rest of the season. Didn't need to take steroids back in. He just did something that, and we end up losing that game because the tying run scores. And I finally got him to admit it at I call Away We Were tour, where I do one-on-ones with, former players at arenas and so forth.
Yeah.
And finally last year I said, let's just admit it. We have 400 people.
You and Reggie?
San Manuel Casino in L.A. And it's time now. And he gave me that smile, that little smile. Yeah, I did it. I said, speak louder. Yeah, I did it. And people were cheering and laughing because he's in L.A. in the shadows of Dodger Stadium. I said, okay, now let's recreate it. And he got up and he actually showed how he stuck the hip out. And that was a big play. I mean,
it was huge. Lasorda went nuts, right? Didn't he go crazy?
Oh, yeah, because Frank Poli's the umpire at first. And to his credit, he's at the line looking this way. Reggie's in front of me, stopped, and he sticks at his hip from a ball coming that way. And I go to reach, and it's gone. And all of a sudden, I'm looking around. I see the ball bounce over towards the dugout, and I get it. By that time, I've gone to third. Now, everything breaks loose. So Lasorda comes out, and Lasorda would give one of these, and in the minor league days, he was thrown out every week because he chewed tobacco, And those poor umpires were covered with tobacco.
No.
Don't think about it too long now. It's lunch hour somewhere. But so he's arguing. I said, okay, wait a second. Frank didn't see it. I understand shadows. But the second base umpire, the American League umpire, had to have seen it because it was a short liner to second. Billy Russell short hopped it, stepped on the bag, throws to me. Well, I go over there, and he looks at me as if, doesn't say a thing, and I'm saying, you had to have seen it. And I know he's thinking, I've got to come back to Yankee Stadium. There's no way I'm going to call this. And then you see a replay. If you ever see the game, there's a shot.
I'm watching the clip
field,
right now.
Right? And you see the umpire look at the bag that Russell and look at first base, and you know he's seen Reggie stick out the hip. But never called it.
Steve Garvey here on the Rich Eisen
is
Show.
going ape.
He is.
Yeah, clip
right?
I only have a few minutes left with you here. About one thing I do want to hit you. What was it like being in the Los Angeles mid-'70s, all those games going on? You know, the celebrities that would be going through,
It was
with
prime
Sinatra
time.
going through Lasorda's
and,
office.
You know,
right?
once Tommy, I mean, it was really special. And then Lasorda came, and it was a whole new level of Hollywood and celebrity. And Danny Kaye would come in with his little slippers and do a dance, and Rickles would come by, and he would say something about each guy and make you belly laugh. And he'd get to me, and he says, I can't say anything. You're my son's favorite player. But I want to say one thing.
Yeah.
You step out of the shower to take a, don't you? And everybody would laugh. I said, yes, I do. And but that was rock and roll. Quick, Sinatra said he would
Please.
do the national anthem for Lasorda if he ever became manager on opening day. So he comes, puts the jacket, jaunty hat, goes to center field, starts off, oh, say, forgets the third stanza, the shortest national anthem of all time. Bert Hooten's next to me, and he says, Lasorda. What, Bert? Who in the heck is that guy out there? He says, you just missed the next two terms, Hooten. Next two starts. Sit down.
Frank
But
Sinatra.
Frank
huh?
Sinatra, yeah. Oh, it sounded good for 2/3 of the national anthem.
Oh, my gosh. And you are here, again, we'll talk about Kings Hawaiian in a second. On Home Run Derby Day, you took part in the first
First one.
Home Run Derby, was 1985.
Yeah.
In the Metrodome?
Minnesota, in the Metrodome, where, you take heavier workouts. And at that time, fans were allowed to come in, which was great.
Mm-hmm.
And the PR fella for the Twins comes over and says, Mr. Garvey, we want to do a little extemporaneous home run derby. Would you? I said, sure. So it was Murphy and Parker and myself. And I think it was George Brett and two other guys. We each got 10 pitches.
Wow.
And I think I hit a couple out. Parker hit 3. And that was the beginning of arguably this great property on ESPN that may get as good a numbers as the game on Tuesday night.
Do you understand why some guys don't want to do it? Because they think it prolongs a slump. Judge got into a slump last year. Some guys are afraid of.
Absolutely. But
Does that make sense to you?
Back when I was playing, right, we attacked the ball at a different angle. We want to hit line drives, backspin, so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's about launch angle. It's low to high. The home run's the single most important element of offense now. So guys have a different angle approaching the ball. Strikeouts don't matter anymore.
Right.
I mean, I averaged 60-something strikeouts. One year I had 90, and I was depressed because I had 90, but Lasorda wanted home runs, and I hit them. So it can put you in a deep slump. By the way, the guy that leads the first round never wins. He usually worn himself out. But a lot of these guys have a launch angle just naturally, so go ahead and do it. It would have thrown me into a slump, or anybody that tried it. You see?
So I know all about Kings Hawaiian because my kids love it. We have it in our house. What's
a staple? Great American company.
It's great, right?
Our family came over 60 years ago, and they had a little bakery in Hawaii, and they decided let's try it in the States, and it's been a staple ever since. Now we've expanded with our food line, Hawaiian food lines, to barbecue sauces. So Eric Dickens, Senior VP of Marketing at Kings Hawaiian a year ago, said, hey, what can we do with this? And I said, let's take it in stadiums and arenas. Let's capture summer.
Mm-hmm.
And we put together the Kings Hawaiian Grill at Dodger Stadium, epicenter of food, because we've got pulled pork and sliders and tri-tips.
So good.
Now we've got
on this bread,
lobster
too.
roll. Yankee Stadium heard about it. We're in there. Fenway Parks did a kiosk earlier this year. They're creating space, and we're talking with Wrigley now. So
Wrigley.
iconic product and iconic stadiums with great American food.
Yeah, kingshawaiian.com. You can go follow them on Twitter at Kings Hawaiian and use the hashtag Kings Hawaiian Aloha Hour. as well. Before I let you go, I do have to ask about one more guy. A home run derby, one of the last home run derby I covered for ESPN, one of the analysts was Tony Gwynn. One of the nicest human beings I have ever come across. And obviously you're known as a Dodger, but you played...
Until I crossed the 5 in Camp Pendleton and then
and went down to San Diego, right?
San Diego,
and you got to play with Tony, right?
Yeah, all 5 years. It was his second year when I got there, and a little something about I'm in the back clubhouse of this dressing area in Yuma, Arizona at 7 in the morning, and nobody's there, and I'm jumping rope because I'm 34 and I know, I'm on a clock and I better get myself ready. And this low lights, and and I feel somebody's in there, and I turn around. There's Tony. He said, "Garv, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm buying time." And he looked at me, smiled. He said, "Am I going to have to do that?" I said, "Eventually." I said, "Because you're blessed and honored to play this game. Every minute of every day, take the opportunity to play as long as you possibly can, because this only comes around once." And he got it. He understood it. That's why when you saw Tony play, he never gave you less than 100%. And for me to be with him those 5 years was a blessing for me, because we talked about the nuances of the game. And I think I maybe have said one or two things that helped him. And for me, that's part of this fraternity of giving back, of us men who have been blessed to play it. So.
Yeah, he played 20 years. Played 20 years.
Yeah.
And you, sir, I know you're Southern California based. Please let me know when you're in Los Angeles. I'd love to have you on in my show studio there, too.
And my wonderful daughter, Olivia Garvey, works for NFL in Los Angeles.
She works on the Red Zone.
She looks like her mother. Yeah, works on the Red Zone.
Okay.
Which does an injustice to how pretty she is.
Okay.
So, but aside, she's loving it, by the way.
And
she listens and she learns from you and everybody.
No.
Listen.
No.
Let's face it. She's a little heavy in baseball.
No. Hold on a second. I just want to make sure that her work environment is good. She doesn't learn from me. She learns from Scott Hansen, the host of Red Zone.
That's right.
By the way, that's his full name, Scott Hansen, host of Red Zone. So
and chained to his desk.
That's right, chained to his desk. They slip the meals underneath, Good to see you.
Great to be with you.
Good to see you. Okay, that's Steve Garvey here. Follow him on Twitter at SteveGarvey6. We're going to take a break, come back, sneak in a quick phone call or check on our poll question, and then Pedro Martinez shows up here on The Rich Eisen Show.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.